Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting for the Zoning Board of Appeals. I call this meeting to order. Luke, may we please have the roll?
Don Bemis.
Here.
Pat Gaston.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here.
Brandy Cologne.
Here.
Randy Timmer.
Here.
Paul Fitton.
Here.
Steve Runkle.
Here. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I move that the agenda be approved as written. Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. It brings us to item number 4, approval of the minutes for August 28th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes, regular minutes of August 28, 2023, as printed.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Brings us to item number 5. Interested citizens in the audience will be heard on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on something not on the agenda? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Croupiers. I live at 561 Indiana Avenue. The main reason I'm here tonight is I was under the impression that we were going to have some sort of discussion about some of the issues that came up at the last meeting. I think that Mr. Bemis, Commissioner Bemis, requested that, and it was motioned and approved, and it's in the minutes that were approved, and it is not on the agenda.
It's on the
Yes,
agenda.
on the agenda. It's 7B.
7B. Zoning ordinance discussion.
Okay, well, that was also my question, was zoning board, it was vague to me. That was vague to me because I thought it was more specifically zoning board as related to STRs. Okay, so I will then stand back and come forward again.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak on a matter not on the agenda? Seeing none, we're going to item number 6, unfinished business, and we have none. We'll go to number 7, new business, and we're looking at 933 Phoenix Street, requesting a dimensional non-use variance. And Ms. Kelly, if you'd kindly.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Brian Peterson is here tonight on behalf of Deborah Wellington, who's the property owner, and he's applied for a dimensional variance to rebuild an existing non-conforming front porch as a part of a larger remodeling project for the home. The property is a 12,200 square foot lot in the R1B zoning district, and the existing home and attached garage were built during the mid-1970s. The proposed renovation would occur primarily within the existing footprint and would include the existing non-conforming covered porch, which is about 19 foot 7 inches by 6 feet. It would be replaced with a smaller 10 foot 3 inch by 6 foot covered front porch. The current setback of that front porch is 21.5 feet, and the required R1B front yard setback is 25 feet. And the city's zoning ordinance requires that if a non-conforming structure is destroyed by any means beyond 60%, that it must be rebuilt in conformance with the regulations of the district unless a variance is approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the application before you is a request for a variance of 3.5 feet from section 403.1 in order to reconstruct the front porch at 933 Phoenix after it's removed as a part of the renovation. So we do need to hold a public hearing tonight and review the application against the 9 standards for dimensional variances.
Brian, you're representing the homeowner. If you could please come and state your name and address.
Brian Peterson, 853 Phoenix Street. Can I say something really quick too, or?
Go ahead.
Well, because Deborah's not here. She lives in Texas, and she's from here originally. I don't know how long she's been away, but she's retiring either at the end of this year or beginning of next, and she wants to move back. And I'm helping her with the renovation. It's mostly inside, interior space, but the porch is a part of it, and fully re-sided and everything. You probably went by the house and maybe you've noticed it, but I mean, it used to be totally covered by bushes. I mean, I live near there, and I mean, I was surprised when those went away and what the house actually looked like. It very dated. So she would like to have that front porch. I mean, retain the porch, smaller, but it's a dated front porch, so she'd like to have it more up to date, and we were working on that. So she would like the same depth, but smaller in width, almost half. But yeah, I can help with anything else.
You'd
if
be
I can.
building on the same footprint.
Same footprint, yeah, I mean.
Smaller.
Just smaller, yeah, I mean, right now, it's about the breadth of the house, it's about 19 and a half feet, and 6 feet in depth. And she'd like to have more of a smaller
So
one.
you're not extending the nonconformity.
No. No.
But,
I have a question, if I may.
yes, go ahead, please.
We're looking here at the provision regarding destruction of a structure. I'm rather confused about the 60% because I would have thought the structure would be the house and this is a piece of the structure as opposed to being a structure itself. And if that were the case, I am not even sure it would be necessary.
Yeah, it's not 60% of the structure itself, we're talking about
Correct.
60% of maybe
Of the porch.
Right.
Right.
You guys can see the confusion.
Anyone else have any questions? Or-
So that's what the rule is, it's, if I was doing a garage, just, if you do something just with the garage, 60% of the garage, then you're under this rule. But even if I didn't touch anything else in the house.
I think out of an abundance of caution and the lack of clarity with the city's zoning ordinance, we have been bringing these types of requests to the ZBA over the past year and a half. We've looked at several front porch-related requests.
And when this was built, it was built in conformance to the requirements at the time,
Yes.
and additional requirements have been put in place in the
Since
interim.
it was built.
And the properties that are adjacent have similar nonconformances, if I understood the write-up.
They do. The two properties immediately to the west are set back at 20 feet. And we did look at the front yard averaging provision to see if we could handle this administratively. The two properties to the west are set at 20 feet, but the property immediately to the east was set at 30, so we landed right back at 25 feet.
I guess I'm still as Don brought up, I mean, this is one portion of a renovation versus a self-contained unit. So I guess so the question was, the 60%,
Once the non-conforming element is removed, then the zoning ordinance says it should be rebuilt in conformance with the provisions of the ordinance.
The porch is a separate entity from the house at that
It
point.
is?
Yes.
okay.
Because the porch is being removed and not the home, it becomes a separate entity.
I'm also kind of surprised you can't just kind of build around it, as we've seen people tear down houses to minimal and then rebuild. You know, that you need to actually tear it off to rehab it, but, okay.
I know what you mean there, I mean, it would have been fine, I mean, the decking too needs to be replaced, I mean, that,
Yeah.
if we were just taking redoing the roof and, you know, chopping off the 10 feet, the decking needs,
You've seen how creative people have been
Yeah.
at this. That's what I'm suggesting.
Could we check in the zoning ordinance, have somebody read the definition of structure? That might help us a little bit on it. If the chairman agrees.
Yeah, that's fine. Kelly, what wasn't prepared for that.
Sorry,
Got
Kelly.
it now, that's okay. A structure is anything fabricated, constructed, or erected, the use of which requires fixation or placement in, on, or attachment to something having location on the ground, including but not limited to all buildings, independently supported decks, satellite dishes, and freestanding signs, excepting anything lawfully in a public right-of-way, including but not limited to utility poles, sewage pumping stations, utility manholes, fire hydrants, electric transformers, telephone boxes, and related public facilities and utilities defined as essential public services.
Thank you.
So legally, he could replace one post at a time and put his decking on without a problem.
Well, I suppose we don't want to encourage folks
Well,
to
I'm
like
just-
to encourage people to complete their
Something like
projects
that was
legally and
done
in
on
their
Cass
entirety.
Yes, something was done there.
I think we should commend them, honestly, for coming and, I mean, they're trying to
Yes.
follow the intent. They're not trying to do what others have done.
Right.
And so, why don't we just,
I appreciate it,
yeah, that's,
but we still have to have a public hearing before we can finish appreciating it.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter?
I move we open the
We
public
would
hearing.
open. Yeah, thank you.
second.
It's been moved and supported. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the public?
We have to vote too.
Oh, yes, I suppose we should.
Everybody in favor?
All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Now let's go with this. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none,
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
it's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none? Is there any other questions or concerns? Any discussion?
It sounds like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying we probably should just go through
Question.
the listing and,
Right. They requested a variance. We may or may not decide that a variance was really necessary, but let's see what happens.
Such a variance will not be detrimental to the adjacent properties and surrounding neighborhoods.
I certainly don't see where it would be, since the adjacent properties seem to be also at that level. It's not going beyond them. So I think that's met.
And such a variance will not impair the intent and purpose of this ordinance.
We have seen several cases of this type in the last few years, and we saw fit at those times to determine that it didn't impair the intent of the ordinance. 25 feet is a healthy setback,
Right.
and in fact, I recall, and I'm sorry I can't recall where it was, but we even allowed the construction of a small stoop to be covered, built in. It wasn't even there existing, but.
Center Street.
Was it Center Street?
Center
Okay.
Street.
Just for safety purposes, if you
Right.
don't have something there and you're fumbling for your keys and holding the storm door with your backside, that's not too safe a condition to be. So I would say that it would not impair.
Okay. An exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applied to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that does not generally apply to other properties in the same zoning district. Any discussion?
I
Well,
think
there's-
the age of the property, I think that kind of applies, it's already there, and that it matches everything else from that zoning time.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that one. Does anybody else?
And such a variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the property, right, similar to the to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district in the vicinity. The possibility of an increased financial return shall not in itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. Discussion?
Most properties in the area do have a front porch.
Right. Right.
I think this one would probably look quite out of place without that,
And the con-
besides not
Right.
enjoying that.
And it's consistent with the neighbors.
It will
Right.
be more consistent than what's there now.
Right, yeah. Unless they let the trees grow back up, bushes. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonable practicable the formulation of general regulation in such conditions or situations.
I think this one is unique in that this is an attempt to actually reduce the scope of a nonconformity.
I agree with that. You know, I mean, you're not expanding the
It's not expanding,
nonconformity,
it's reducing to
reducing it,
a smaller distance.
right. Any other comment? And the condition or situation of specific property, did I just do that one?
We did that one.
I did that one, that was number 6. Number 7, the strict compliance with area setbacks, frontage, height, bulk, or density would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for permitted purpose or would render conformity unnecessarily burdensome. I don't think it would be, I think they met that. I mean, like we just discussed, they're not expanding the nonconformity.
Right.
You know, that's,
Yeah, this is a reasonable yes, I think.
and that the variance requested is minimum amount necessary to overcome the inherent in the particular property or mitigate the hardship.
I would say that is met in that they are requesting a standard size, relatively
Right.
small porch.
Exactly. Again, we're back to the,
Small enough to be safe,
right,
not larger than essential.
right. And that the variance will relate only to this property under the control of the applicant. And that would be a yes. Any other discussion? Comments?
I'd say based upon, we feel that we've gone through these criteria and we feel that they're all in order, that I would make a motion to approve this variance.
And second.
Been moved and supported to approve the variance. And Luke, let's do a roll on this.
Sorry about that. Heinig,
Yes.
Cologne,
Yes.
Timmer,
Yes.
Fitton,
Yes.
Bemis,
Yes.
Gaston,
Yes,
Runkle.
Yes. It has been approved.
we'll be watching. The transformation, no, I mean the transformation, if you've seen this house, we'll be watching this transformation.
It will no longer be a chalet.
No, it would be something, I was like, oh, my goodness.
All righty, this brings us to item number 7B, zoning ordinance discussion. And Kelly, what are we doing with this?
Well, I think that in part depends on all of you. Last month, you all began a discussion about several items related to the zoning ordinance, short-term rentals, and whether or not the ZBA can appeal decisions to itself. So this decision culminated in a motion that was left kind of open-ended. And but there was a motion to place a discussion item on the agenda for this month, so we've done that. I do have some items that I can share with you if you wish to go that route.
Absolutely.
We do have a memo from the city's attorney that was composed to detail the opinion that he gave at last month's meeting about whether or not the ZBA can certify decisions to itself or appeal decisions to itself. I do also have a short presentation that I can offer about the short-term rental application process. Very exciting. And Griffin and I can also provide you with an update regarding the ongoing zoning ordinance rewrite. I think at this point, we're interested in providing you with the information that you're seeking, and, please let us know how you'd like to proceed this evening.
Well, why don't we start with what Nick has
Sure.
come up with, and
Have you pass those out?
what you need down there yet, too.
There aren't at this time, but we're happy to include it in the minutes after the meeting.
Here, here's another copy.
Say we can share.
There's no conflict with the Open Meetings Act. Thank you.
Okay, and Griffin, would you like to read this, or would you like to read this? Or are we just going to read it ourselves?
I
wish
think
we-
if you all would like to take a few minutes to read it, we're happy to
Okay.
participate in a discussion
All
if you
right.
all would like afterwards.
All
I
right.
wish you had sent us this in an email so we could have written for now.
Well, we didn't have enough notice to place it in the packet, and so
Right.
No, no,
in
but
the
I
interest
thought
of
you
all of
could've
you
just
receiving it
emailed
at the
it to
same
us.
time, we just
It's kind of cumbersome to read it right now.
bring it to the meeting.
Griffin, is there a reason not to display this on the screen if somebody wants to read it?
If that's what you all would like, right
Yeah,
now,
can we put it up on the screen? This way everyone can be a part of this. Right. Mary?
Read that fast?
We have an extra copy up here.
Oh, I was gonna say,
It's-
holy moly, how'd you
Yeah,
read
me
that
too.
fast?
I'm like,
There you go.
I'll say it again too. We're planning and happy to put a copy of this with the minutes of this evening's
Yeah,
meeting
okay,
too,
that'd
so
be
that
great. That
it's
would be great.
on the website and people can look at it.
I think the conclusion sums it up well.
Mr. Chairman,
Don?
I'd like to point out it's moot in that the ZBA ultimately did not appeal to itself.
Right.
The motion was to discuss. So his point may be good, but it doesn't apply to a discussion. One possible way to get around this, if we wanted to look at it further, would be for the ZBA to request that the city council appeal it or request the ZBA to study it. Therefore, it would not be self-initiated.
May I ask?
Yes, please.
Don, I'm honestly confused.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. I'm confused. What issue is it? You know, we had the discussion, we had a vote, we ultimately came to a decision in the meeting last time. So what are we talking about? What specific issue out of that process, right? The discussion that we had, we considered, I thought, all the factors, and we each made our decisions and we voted. So what would we be expanding that discussion? And I'm fishing, I'm trying to understand
Question.
where we would even want to go with this. Because my understanding coming out of the last meeting is basically the decision was made, we were done with that issue. And again, I have lots of questions about short-term rentals in my own mind. But I'm just not understanding what question he's answering. He answers a question. I don't even understand what the question is.
Exactly.
Can somebody help me?
I'm happy to explain what my concern was.
Okay.
The issue at the last meeting, an applicant applied or filed for an appeal. The notification was for something that was only a piece of the appeal. And there was an email, I believe, from the city manager stating the other part could not be appealed. In other words, it was not the zoning administrator or anybody else that decided what that appeal was going to be. It was the city manager. And the underlying concern is whether items are not being brought to the ZBA that the ZBA is allowed to see. For an example, there was a ZBA hearing some years ago. This happened fairly commonly too, where the ZBA would get an appeal and say something like, you're too late, or this doesn't apply. And if the city were to put all that, if the city were to put the appeal on the schedule and then leave the discussion until the meeting, instead of prejudging a piece of it and deciding what part is going to be discussed, then the ZBA could, with the city's assistant and the attorney's assistants, determine what we had the authority to do and what we didn't.
Okay, just to make sure that I understand what you're saying, there were two questions. One was voted on by us, and one was excluded by the city administration.
By decision of the city.
Yeah.
It
And
was
I
not
think in this
appealed.
case, it was the city attorney, but somebody decided that's not for you to decide.
The city attorney does not have authority. He can provide advice.
So what you would be looking for, just so I understand, is, you know, if you look at the case we just had, right, we got a recommendation from the city staff on each one of those questions. And so rather than excluding that issue, you would have desired or expected a recommendation as opposed to an exclusion.
Yes. The way the ordinance appears to read to me is if an applicant applies, they're in effect applying to the zoning board of appeals. So if they make the application and they fill out the form, it should go to the zoning board of appeals. If they ask for something wrong, it's our responsibility to tell them it was wrong. It's not, in my belief, the city's responsibility to tell them, no, you asked the wrong question. We are not going to send it on.
Well, I do find this case, again, speaking of the last meeting, quite confusing because more typically you'd see the property owner come and request the variance. In this case, we had a non-property owner, the person owned property in the area, coming and saying, I want you to revoke their permit.
That's an administrative appeal. But we got half of an administrative appeal. We were not given the opportunity to determine whether the city was correct or not in their exclusion of the other part. And for years, there have been concerns about how things are processed through the building department, and that long precedes the people who are currently in the department. Who decides if it's being administered properly, if it appears that there's a blocking action or an unwillingness, or in this case, if it's an administrative appeal, where essentially the applicant, who has the right to apply, says, we believe the city made the wrong decision. And the city said, well, we're only going to discuss part of your concern. It should go to the ZBA, and then the ZBA should evaluate it, the entire appeal, not a piece of it.
I have to be honest and say I don't know if I agree with you or not. And the reason is I do believe that there are cases where what you're saying makes perfect sense to me. You know, the city staff, nobody should be allowed to limit the scope of that appeal. The other side is there are legal processes and limits that I don't necessarily understand very well that do apply. And so I do think you're somewhat dependent on the city's lawyer to help guide us through the process, because I don't know who else could do that.
The city attorney can, as Commissioner Bemis said, give recommendation that we can use as a resource, but it should not be the deciding factor.
Okay.
I do believe there should be process at the city level. Otherwise, you could have a floodgate situation where all kinds of things are coming to us that are inappropriate for this forum. So I'd be interested in that presentation that Ms. Doucette mentioned. The last meeting, to clear up some confusion, then that type of application, all applications to the ZBA should be extraordinary rare exceptions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. That's the intent. That was an especially that type of situation. But for an ongoing period of time, we have all on this board received communication from the public with a lot of confusion, and shedding more transparency on process would be probably helpful, not only for new members of the board like Mr. Fitton and myself, but also for the public at large, as sometimes we get communication from the public that we can't act on as commissioners of the ZBA unless it is something of nature that Commissioner Bemis said. Perhaps we can flip to city council by whatever appropriate action is there. I do agree with the attorney's recommendation and clarity that the intent of the ZBA is to hear applications, make decisions on applications. We're not here to create any case on our own or come up with anything on our own. That part is true, but I also agree with Mr. Bemis. We need the full scope, and sometimes they are quite complicated, so perhaps that may stretch out some applications, but like this evening with the application that was here that may have been a little bit gray area, I would rather that type of application is here than not.
Within those 300-some pages we had a month ago to look at, I don't recall anything that was saying that was challenging staff's decision, that citing any portion of the ordinance that staff had misinterpreted in taking a portion, as you say, a portion of the out. They didn't like that decision, but they didn't say that staff misinterpreted anything in doing that. So I didn't feel that had ever been questioned and brought to us. I can't say that it couldn't, but it didn't, in my opinion.
we apparently took different perceptions out of it, because when I read the 300 pages, I saw a lot of items where basically the applicant was saying, to me, the law says this, but it was done that way. And the question is, who made the decision? One interesting point is the zoning administrator has a lot of authority, which is very good. And the zoning administrator has the authority to delegate certain parts of her job to deputies. One of the questions that comes up is, are decisions being made outside of the zoning authority or outside the zoning administrator or somebody that has been deputized by the zoning administrator, or has it been done somewhere else? That's one of the questions that I would like to look at.
But without someone bringing a case to us and citing where the zoning administrator is wrong, we don't have any jurisdiction.
But I saw pages of arguments on
But
that.
no citing of where
Right.
the zoning administrator was incorrect. Just pages of opinion that they didn't think it was right.
Well,
We need specifics.
Yeah. And again, whatever the case may be, we cannot bring that upon ourselves to pick and choose what we want to pick out of something to say, well, I don't exactly agree with this. Interpretation is interpretation. You know, in the building world, you know, what I read on something to say in a code book means almost nothing compared to what the particular inspector reads it to be.
Right.
And you know who's always right? It's not me.
according to law,
Doesn't matter.
according to law, a person can file an appeal to the ZBA regarding that zoning inspector's
But-
decision, for example.
Exactly, but a person, not the board. We cannot go back and start going through all this.
Right.
If any one person wants to do it, that's great, but I also caution, I don't think we are the ones to go to city council and say, hey, I'd like you to look at this, can you file an appeal to us?
Then who is?
Not us,
The public,
The
not
public.
this board. The
not this
public.
board, yeah. That to me is saying that we're here to be the judge and jury over everyone, and that's not
We
our
are
place.
here to follow the ordinance, make sure the
Exactly.
ordinance is put in place. We don't write the ordinance.
But is Don trying to say somebody did bring something to us?
Yes.
The second half of that, they did bring it to us,
May I?
a citizen.
Just looking at, it's in the notes, on page 3 of 24, it's the third paragraph, I think. And
324.
the city attorney basically excluded the portion of the challenge, the appeal, associated with parking, because the appeal was not filed within 21 days of the decision. They didn't meet an administrative requirement.
The city attorney does not have the authority to exclude anything.
Well, the thing that I would note is that we had extensive, in spite of that, we discussed parking extensively.
But we could not make a decision on parking because it wasn't in the public notice.
I don't know what to say, Don. I don't, but I do know in this particular case, because it's in the minutes, and it's what I recall, the thing that the attorney said was, we could not consider that question.
What I'm
But I
saying,
do know, we had a lot of discussion about it, so I'm not sure how that happened, but that's what we're talking about. He specifically said, you can't talk about whether you have adequate parking or not, because they didn't meet the 21-day requirement.
and that's where I disagree. We can talk about it. He can provide, if we agree with what the city attorney says, we can tell that to the applicant. Instead, the decision was made that the ZBA would not even be allowed to discuss it. Or your point on discussion is good. Let's say the ZBA was not allowed to make a formal statement with regard to that part of the appeal.
Well, I'm somewhat sympathetic to what you're saying, because I do think administratively, we should not be allowed to pick and choose. The staff shouldn't be allowed to pick and choose. I agree with that. But if there is a specific law, a legal requirement, and he calls one out, section 2209.1 of the city zoning ordinance, it has a requirement in. whether we agree with that or not, that says they have 21 days to file an appeal of the decision. So he's giving us legal advice. It appears to be consistent with the law. And I'm not sure how we as a board can say, oh, you know, yeah, we know it says that, but we're gonna make that decision.
Well, there are a couple other issues there. First of all, 21 days from when? I have not yet seen a good definition of when the appeal clock starts. I don't have an understanding of where those things are recorded. I don't know how people find out when the 21 days start.
That is a good question.
That's come up numerous times.
Yes, and it's not been answered.
And although it may not be our decision, but transparency to the public and making it clear what that definition is could probably go a long way to mitigate those
So
questions.
how about, instead of going off on every which direction, and this is one of the things that I think both Paul and I were trying to get to last time, let's define what it is that we're looking for.
Okay.
In that clarification, great thing. Absolutely. So maybe that's one of the bullet points. Let's find out, let's get a clear definition of when that 21 days starts.
And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these things exist. They just need to be made more transparent.
Yep, and that's as simple as asking a question.
Okay.
I think we can ask some questions for some clarification,
Right.
Okay.
instead of saying that we're going to, you know,
Yeah.
I proposed, I was making notes. I came up with 3 goals
Okay.
that I think would be good. The first one is to review administration of the South Haven zoning ordinance. That's a very broad statement. And that would be the question, is the ordinance being adhered to, or are parts of it being ignored, or whatever, just to review. Second, identify staff's role in the ZBA appeal process from the appellant's submittal to scheduling. And third, send a report to the city council. We report to the city council. The city manager reports to the city council. And the food chain in the department ultimately reports to the city council. City council is our parents. So what I would like to do, since we have the same parent there, report to that parent and let the city council figure out what needs to be done. I also had a list of questions. And if you want me to run through them, I can. If you'd rather have more discussion before then, that's fine with me too, unless the chairman tells me something different. Okay, questions. Is city staff allowed to edit or change the scope of an appeal? Next question. Have the reporting requirements for short-term rentals been met? There were questions that, it got to be such a he said, she said thing. I'd like to see it so we can answer it. Because the he said, she said is too much.
The first one I understand. The second one, just, my opinion is not appropriate for this board.
The reason for the report was to determine how many short-term rentals could be permitted.
But that's, and I agree with you, I'd love that information. There's a lot of information, but as a board, I don't think that
That's not our.
comes to
yeah,
us.
That doesn't come to us.
There are a lot of short-term rental issues that I would like to know the answers to, that I don't think this board
has
is the
anything
venue.
to do with.
Okay, I will continue then. We'll forget that one for the moment. Okay, next question. Has the city allowed short-term rentals before certificates are approved? It appears that that has occurred. The ordinance says it shouldn't.
Well, I didn't hear that exactly.
Has the city allowed short-term rentals before certificates are approved? Yes or no? Next question. What are available recourses when zoning ordinance cannot be followed? I know the city staff had a problem with staffing and time to get things done. Who takes care of that? Ultimately, city council by authorizing hiring or whatever, were they advised? Okay, here are the recourses that I find. Zoning Board of Appeals approval or appeal, that's us. Circuit Court appeal, City Council ordinance change, or in some cases, City Council moratorium.
I'm sorry, again, I'm confused. What is it we would approve?
I want to know the answers to these questions. It'll help us figure out what's next. Okay, next question. When, where, and how are public records recorded? When can people find, that goes along with the clock question. When does the appeals clock start? Does short-term rental on hold status comply with the zoning ordinance?
I guess that would be, that's kind of one of the questions are, and I've heard staff say, if someone is working towards compliance, but should there be, I mean, I'm probably getting out of line here, but should there be an unending limit to on hold, and you can still rent? I mean, I guess that's one of my big concerns, but.
Well, these are,
But I mean, I don't know, yeah, I don't know.
they're all
We
good
don't have any-
questions. They're all,
And there doesn't
makes for
seem to
good
be-
discussion, but this is for city council.
That's why I want the city council to ask us these questions. Because we have the authority to compel information.
They're still not asking us the question, though.
They can ask us to investigate it
Is
if
that
they
what-
choose to do
Is
so.
that what you're suggesting, that these
Yes.
questions of yours go to city council for them to ask us these questions?
Right, and they have the authority to do that,
Okay.
or not do it, change the questions, or send them to us. But then it would not be an appeal by the zoning board of appeals, and it would give somebody the opportunity to look at the process and see if there's compliance. Because right now, it appears to me, we have a department, and that's not you, Kelly, and it's not you, Griffin. We have a department that is defining what we can look at and what we can challenge. Who's going to challenge it? Now, the statement was made that public can go to city council and do it. Okay, what's city council going to do? I'm suggesting the city council could use this as a way to do it.
Don, as staff, I think I feel that you're taking one part of an appeal that was not timely and making a very large leap that staff is now withholding information from the ZBA. I think that's unfair. I think the application was very lengthy, and I think that staff made best efforts to bring forward the questions as best we could. There were two clearly enumerated questions in that appeal. Anything else was implied.
I understand your feeling, and I understand what you're saying. But the issue is larger than that one appeal, in my
Well,
opinion.
Don, I think I would put back to you, a lot of the questions that you're asking, I'm curious about how you fit them into the ZBA's role of hearing variance applications, of hearing interpretation requests, of hearing appeal applications. I mean, I guess I don't see how these questions that you're posing fit into the role of the ZBA. I'm not saying that they're not valid questions, that they're not important questions. I'm just questioning how they are for the ZBA.
I would say the way they're for the ZBA is basically along the line of administrative appeals. An administrative appeal to the ZBA basically is a challenge by somebody of how the zoning ordinance was administered. These questions here are along the line of how is the zoning ordinance administered? And we may very well find out all the answers are wonderful. Right now, we have no answers, and we're not getting any. And that's what I'd like to see, so we can look at it and see if there's a better way to get some clarity here.
So can I just pose a question off of that? As I guess I'm just, you made a comment earlier that we could send these questions to city council and they could decide what they wanted to do. Do they do an appeal? Do they do nothing? Do they change the ordinance? So on and so forth. that makes complete sense. I mean, they could, you could email them those questions. They could watch this evening's meeting and hear those questions. We could come up with other ways they could get those questions. So I don't disagree with you that conceivably they could come up with an appeals or an interpretation or some kind of application. An interpretation would probably be more appropriate coming from city council. But I guess the reason I'm interjecting or proposing the question is, if city council, who ultimately adopts and put these policies in place, has an interpretation question, or let's start with an interpretation question. Don't we think they would just try to amend the policy that they have in place that's not having the outcome that they would want to see? Or think about an appeal. If they want to challenge a decision that their staff has made, I mean, they have a process to go through that with the city manager who reports to them, and they can evaluate and discipline and handle that with the city manager, and on and on the chain. So I'm not doubting that is a path. I guess I'm just curious that if we sent those questions to the city council, would making an application be to the ZBA really be, I mean, we could, I guess, talk of appropriate, but like, would that be their most effective way to getting to the outcome, which is trying to get answers to those types of questions? Because I do agree with what Kelly said too, that there are some good, very fair questions that I think we as staff, I think there are very good, fair questions in there.
Yeah, I agree. And two, this should be going to city council.
And that's what I want to do with it.
But I think what we're proposing is a compliance audit. I mean, you and I have the same background.
Yes.
And so, to me, this is like the NRC or QA organization coming in and saying, okay, we got these rules. Okay, you got your programs. Okay, I want to see your compliance with STR implementation requirements. I want to see your program. And it's like, okay, here's all the rules. We're not doing anything. Or here's all the rules. We're doing all this stuff. Or here's, we've got all these procedures. Whatever it is, it's a that what you're asking for maybe, I think, maybe completely appropriate, but I don't think it's appropriate for this board.
Okay, we do have the same background, and I think that's a very good way of putting it, too. But there are a couple things I remember I had 35 years in the business, and you had quite a few yourself.
Quite a few.
There were two mantras that came up in that business. The first one is follow the procedure. Question is, what do you do if you can't follow the procedure? You stop. Stop when unsure. That was the other part. I have a feeling, and I believe other people have a feeling, that we've really gotten in the mode over many years of not stopping, but developing workarounds. And getting the on hold, for example, is a potential case of that happening. And a compliance audit would be fine. But how does the whole process get started? In our business, it was you write a condition report. Well, this is basically what I'm proposing. Report to the city council if there are questions, and then recommend to them, and we could even use the words if we wanted, do a compliance audit or whatever, because by then, it's the city council's prerogative to figure out how to deal with the question. The questions exist.
There are a number of questions that exist, but, and again, you can say we've only been here 2 months, so it's like, but it just seems to me that the chain of command, the city management structure needs to be answering these questions, not the zone of,
Exactly.
not us.
And what do you do if part of the city management structure is knowingly or unknowingly a part of the issue?
Well, my personal opinion is that's not the situation here. I mean, if we disagree with some of the legal advice they're getting, I understand that, but I don't think that's the issue here.
It seems to me that city council probably knows all of these questions already. I don't think they need to hear from us. And they are indeed looking at the short-term rental ordinance.
And
It probably is going to be coming to the planning commission from them. Now, I guess it has to, if they're going to propose any wording changes in the ordinance.
And the
So
ordinance
things,
is being-
things are happening right now, and it just seems to me that city council is aware of the problems that are occurring.
And that-
If we are, I'm sure they are.
That is why they are rewriting the ordinance, redoing the ordinance. That's why
They're not
they're trying to,
redoing
they're trying to simplify it.
I'm-
Let me clarify that.
Steve,
I
I
have
So
think,
concerns
let's,
about how
yeah,
that
let's
could-
talk about the zoning
yeah,
ordinance
I think
for just
those
a
are,
minute.
let's, for the sake of clarity, let's recognize, I think, the zoning ordinance rewrite that's ongoing and city council's discussion about potential changes to the short-term rental ordinance.
Right.
Those are both taking place, but
Right.
let's not blur the line between those two
okay.
processes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
those are relatively distinct at
Yes.
this point. And particularly for some of the conversations we've had this evening, blurring that line's not gonna create clarity for anyone.
I also just want to point out real quick too, that, one of the things that you mentioned, Don, was that, whether or not things are happening administratively that shouldn't be happening, or so on and so forth, or decisions being made that, maybe shouldn't. I really, truly believe that, over the years, with the, 10 different zoning administrators we've had in the last 7 years, there's probably been some things missed. Now, is that a perfect system? Absolutely not. But I can tell you right now, as of today, I really think that if things were being glossed over, we would have not had in front of us what we had in front of us tonight. Because that could have easily been an administrative check, pass it on down the road.
I truly appreciate what was brought to us tonight.
So that alone says to me that we clearly have people that are doing their jobs, looking at everything thoroughly and making the right decisions.
Right.
Do we always agree with every decision? No. That's just part of life. However, I also come back to the fact that if we have ordinances in place or rules in place that says you have X amount of time to appeal a decision, it is nobody's decision, including ours, to overturn that. One of the things I will tell you right now that I was very upset with in our last meeting is that I feel like in ways we were hijacked in the beginning of that into now accepting more things that were not supposed to be on our meeting. I don't agree with that in any way. And I find it offensive to the system of what we're supposed to be doing.
I think I understand what you're saying, and I can't argue with it. I will say that a thing that I found offensive to the system was being told that the ZBA could not look at the entire appeal question that was filed, that somebody paid for, and we got a piece of it to look at and make a decision on. I think that's
Understandably.
wrong.
But again, based on the 21 days. I can't argue with something that is written. I just can't. And I understand we can differ on that. That's okay.
But if the question comes, was the 21 days based upon correct information, or was it not?
Right.
If that was given to the ZBA, we'd probably look at it and say, yep, you missed the 21 days. That's our responsibility to say that. I don't think it's city staff's responsibility to keep us from saying it.
But how
But
would we
they-
know
they
it was
didn't keep
21
us-
days when we don't even know when the timer starts?
Exactly.
So,
We don't have enough information, and I think we need it.
Why are we not trusting our city staff that tells us that it didn't meet the, I guess
I would just like to know, when does the 21
Sure,
days start?
and that's fine. Right. Yep, I completely understand that. But when we are told that they didn't meet it, why are we not believing that? I guess is my question.
I guess part of the reason is that I tend to be skeptical.
Okay.
The staff people, the ones in this room, for example, are great. I like working with them. I appreciate them. I think the problem is bigger. It's the process. And it's making it hard for the people to do the things that need to be done, for whatever reason. And what I'm saying here now is, how is that fixed? Getting back to the nuclear thing, and what you were saying too. If there are issues, what are they and what do we do about them? And is anybody looking at it? What I'm proposing is the ZBA tells city council, there are concerns. We'd like to present you a list of questions you may like, you may not like, but then could you look at these and determine whether you think there are concerns and then decide what to do about it?
I'm sorry, I can't agree on that one, but I don't believe that's our place to tell them.
Then whose is it?
Any person in the public who has a concern.
Yep.
And what am I?
You personally.
You're a person in the
Yeah,
public.
but
fine.
as a
Correct.
board,
Okay.
I don't believe it should come from us. I believe it can come from you wholeheartedly, absolutely. But for you to say that the ZBA itself, as the board, is wanting you to do this, I don't agree with that.
I will say Mr. Bemis does not stand alone on this. We've seen a very increased volume of communication coming from the community. So from my standpoint, I like having the transparency, and asking the questions doesn't mean that there's something nefarious going on. It's just inspecting what's going on, putting transparency on what's going on. And the city council, there are parents, but it's the community that we're all here to serve, and the community has been asking us for a lot of questions, and it's true, a lot of what the community's been asking us is out of our scope. So that's bleeding over from somewhere, and I would say from council. And I would hope that it's on their radar. I think all of us as citizens should continue to communicate that, but when it's encroaching over and it's taking up staff time, forward this on, forward this on, forward this on, I would rather staff be working on those applications and things for the city rather than,
Okay.
I think city council needs to be aware there is an issue here, and it
Brandy,
may fall into other things they're working on, and this is just feedback we're adding to it.
Right, and I agree with that, but I guess sorry, I've kind of lost my train of thought on this right now. I guess my question would be, at what point though, let's say we ask a question, we're given an answer. At what point do we just let that answer be the answer? Because I feel like there's been questions that we've asked that have been answered, and we're still challenging those questions.
Brandy, I
Are we
think
expecting,
something,
are we expecting city council to answer us?
That's not my expectation.
didn't
I
think
don't
they
think
were
they
the
have.
Well, no, I'm not even talking
Oh, I
about that.
thought
I'm
you-
talking about with staff.
Brandy, I think something, I guess that might be helpful for, your comment there about, wanting city council to be aware that you all are getting these questions. I obviously can't speak for them or the individuals on council, but I can tell you with a high level of confidence that if you all are getting these questions, they are getting them, they are getting many of them,
presume
maybe
that.
different worded, maybe different people, maybe more, that they are very aware of the concerns and frustrations and questions associated with the short-term rental program, among many other things. Maybe not worded the exact same way that Mr. Bemis did this evening, but in general, if you all are getting these questions, there's a really good chance they are getting them, if not more. I also think a concern is, with city council getting these questions and concerns, as the elected officials, as the body who ultimately gets to make those policy decisions, that there are people in the community, and they absolutely can, who are unhappy with the decisions being made by city council, the lack of decisions being made by city council, or some other version in there, and are trying to go to other boards and commissions because they're not getting the outcome that they want. Okay, they can do that, but just
I think
be aware of that piece
I-
of this
yes,
puzzle
I'm
probably as well.
I am aware, and I think that's fair. And I do want to remind everyone, commissioners, the public at large, staff, that the intent of this agenda item 7B is a discussion.
Thank you.
That's all we're obligated to do. That's all we've intended to do at this time, is have a discussion.
Shall we see what the audience has to say? Let's open a public hearing, and let
No.
these two
I don't know
people
if you can
speak?
do that.
No, you
I don't think you can do that.
Cannot have a public hearing?
Mr.
However,
Chair.
you can ask the public if they want to speak.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter?
I would, thank you. Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I think it would help more focus the issue. I think Commissioner Bemis, I think the main question is who determines ZBA jurisdiction? And I think that's what you had hoped to have answered or discussed, and that's not really what was in the memo. And the question is it ZBA or is it staff? And that's with regard to timing and subject matter. So, a year ago, when this property was questioned, the appeal was denied for lack of standing, alleged lack of standing. The case on which that opinion was based was overturned a month later by the Supreme Court of Michigan, and that's why the appellant was before you this year, but not last year. And 21 days from a decision. Which decision? So minds could differ, as this discussion shows, which decision. And that really affects the subject matter, which really should go back to the ZBA. And the reason I encourage the ZBA to be the deciding factor, deciding body, is that a case that was cited a year ago, denying jurisdiction, in it, if you read the whole case, it talked about that exact issue about jurisdiction. And the ZBA actually decided it. And there's other cases where the staff and legal attorney made recommendations to the ZBA, and the ZBA decided whether the timing was right or jurisdiction was right. So I would encourage that the question to the city council be, please have an interpretation of who decides subject matter jurisdiction of the ZBA. With regard to timing, I would encourage you to also ask, when does the clock start ticking? I believe that was a question. And is it when it's dated? Is it when it's published on the city website so someone would actually know? Because if it's published a week after it's dated and it's only 21 days, you've already lost a third of your time. So what's fair, what's equitable with such a short time frame in which to appeal? Put another way, if it's issued but it's not readily available, does the clock start? It shouldn't take a FOIA request, Freedom of Information request, because the city can take 21 days to respond. And the response is just whether it exists and what the fee is going to be and an estimated time to provide it. And if you do an audit, what I would encourage you to do is request the procedures, the pertinent procedures, and more importantly, ask how long they've been in existence so that you know how long they've been here and when there may have been some modifications. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else? I think we had one other person that kind of wanted.
Again, I'm Lisa Krubiers, 561 Indiana. I'm going to mention a couple things about the case that was before you last month. I was in close communication with Ms. Herbert as she was working on it, and she was very specific that she had filed within her understanding of the 21 days. The certificate was issued on July 10th, and her appeal was filed, time-stamped, with 2 days in reserve. However, she received no response from the city until after the date, the business date of that 21st day. So, yes, questions. And I believe I have seen that the 21-day is being considered to be extended to 30 days. I don't know if I'm correct on that, but I know I've seen that floating around somewhere. She, also Ms. Herbert, and she expressed this, she had filed over the last year, I believe, 6 to 8 appeals that were short-circuited and never came to the board. Commissioner Brandy Colomb, I think I'm pronouncing your name right, refer to that as filtering. The city staff filters these things, and is that appropriate? This is where the trust factor comes in. So who has the right? Do they have the right to filter and short-circuit these things so that it does not get to the ZBA, who has the right to hear these things. And a very good example of this is 77 Clinton. When they had their, second-story deck, the addition they were putting on, there were neighbors outside here waiting to come to the ZBA meeting to appeal it, to speak to that appeal, and they were told the meeting had been canceled. So that's where, again, the trust factor comes in. These things do not get to ZBA. I have some other issues here that are more short-term rental, but it looks like I'm running out of time. I feel like Commissioner Fitton, I think when you're on a commission like this, I think it's the commissioner's responsibility to be as formed and knowledgeable in the workings of the commission as they can be. There's always going to be things we don't know or that you don't know, but I think there's a huge responsibility there, and I leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to, if I may, make one other suggestion.
Sure.
The question was, who brings it to city council if it's not the ZBA? And the statement was a citizen, and by extension, I am a citizen. However, and I'm willing to do that as a citizen, and I'm willing to do that not as a representative of ZBA, but I don't want it to be done in such a way that I'm considered to be what I'm not. If I go to city council at their next meeting, for example, and say, I have these concerns, and what are you going to do about it? The question is going to be, do you represent the ZBA? No, I represent Don Bemis, but I know zoning. So I would want it to be done in such a way that I could do that. What I was hoping is that the ZBA would say, we have some questions, we don't have the answers, we would like to have a little bit of support from behind to help us get the answers so we can see if there's a problem or not. Again, on administration of the zoning ordinance. Now, if we decide if we conclude, I'll put it that way, that there are some problems, we're not in a position to change it. All we could do would be to report to city council, say, this is what we found, and then city council can say, yes or no, we'll do something about it, or no, we won't. But I think the questions need to be presented, and we need answers, and then somebody needs to do something with those and decide if we have a problem or not, and if there is a problem, what is the problem? And then, what do we do about it? Right now, that's not happening.
Well, isn't it possible if you went, even if we, as a group, sent something to city council, their job, I mean, they could say, we just accept this. That's all they have to do.
They have that prerogative.
Right. In other words, or if you went to them, we accept your report.
And then the public could ask,
Well, that's
okay,
what
what'd you do with the report? Is it worth worrying about?
I mean, that's all they have to do is accept it.
That's correct. It's their responsibility then to decide what to do with the report if they get a report. And one of their rights is to say nothing. Another one is to say, we need to make some changes. But that's the city council's decision.
Griffin, do you have any suggestions on how to go about this, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see probably three paths forward. I mean, I think one, and it's one, Mr. Bemis mentioned, is, I mean, theoretically, if you all have some questions, you can make a motion, and you could vote, and you could send some questions to city council. They can decide what, if anything, they'd like to do with that. Okay. I think, as you also mentioned, Mr. Bemis has every right as a resident, just like any member of the public could, to go and speak at a future city council meeting during public comment, and he can he can preface, we're a small enough town that city council members are going to know who he is, but, you can preface the, years of service you've given to the city on city council and other boards and commissions and in other capacities and, bring up your questions. I'll also say, I think something we can do that is maybe somewhat of a middle ground is, if you would like to, you've read your questions, but I presume you have them written out in some format.
3 copies.
Well, I'm happy if you would like to provide us a copy, just like we're going to include the memorandum from the attorney that was shared with you all. I'm happy to include it as an attachment to this meeting's minutes. You all have discussed the questions plenty, and those meeting minutes, like all others, go to city council, and they can review those like I know they do. And again, at that point, they have seen those and, again, presumably could decide what, if anything, they want to do with them. Mr. Bemis or others could, at the same meeting or another one, also come and, ask or encourage or say whatever they want about that. So, I mean, there's definitely ways to get information. It's just how you all want to decide to go about that. I would just, and I apologize for being wordy, I would also just say again, like every other member of the public, and you all have shared many times, it's just recognizing that, your elected officials then at that point will get to decide what, if anything, they would like to do with those. And there's a good chance that they may decide to do something, they may not decide to do something, you may like what they decide to do, you may not like what they decide to do. That ultimately is their prerogative. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Right. It is very helpful. Your questions are valid. Every question is valid. So personally, what I would do as the chair, I would entertain a motion to have these questions submitted to city council if you would like to submit them as the zoning board of appeals, representing the zoning board of appeals, because they are valid questions. I would entertain a motion to have this done.
Can we have a little discussion on that real quick?
And we can, sure.
So how about, let's try something completely different that maybe hasn't been brought up yet.
All right.
How about we take Don's list of questions, we provide Griffin and Kelly with some copies, and we say at our next meeting, hey, maybe you can give us some clarification on these questions. Say can you explain to us the 21-day clock and when it starts? But I'm going to caution everybody right now. I think if we do that, they agree to it, we come back at the next meeting, let's just say we pick 5 questions for right now. And maybe, you know what, maybe every couple months we ask 5 more questions. Let's keep them simple, straightforward. When they give us the explanation, that's what we live with.
That's
Because I feel like that has been the biggest divisiveness right now with everything is that, again, questions are asked and answered, but nobody wants to listen to the answer.
right.
And it feels like the answer gets tossed around here and there, and everybody's got their own interpretation of it. So, and I agree, some things are not necessarily going to be black and white. Some of them are very black and white. But again, if we do that, everyone agrees, it's a much easier process that way.
I like that. I like that.
Are we able, as a board, every meeting, to say, here's our questions? I don't know, I mean, I almost feel like we said, we can't even have this on the agenda.
And again, this isn't, but this isn't.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
And we want to provide information.
Yeah.
We're happy to do that. I mean, I think I have to preface on behalf of our team, I mean, there's always going to be a capacity restriction.
Absolutely.
So if you give us a couple questions and we have a month to work, I mean,
Sure.
we're happy to bring back information and again, do the best we can to try to inform and educate and answer the best we can. Randy, you bring up a good point. I will admit, maybe some of them people aren't going to like the answers to. That's okay. It can go through the process there. Right, we can't do 100 questions every
Exactly.
Right,
month, but, I
Right.
mean, if that's an alternative that you all would like to start, I think we're happy to do that. Kelly, did you have something to add?
No, I was just gonna say that we're happy to provide information and the ZBA can ask for information. That's valid.
Any-
Okay, all right.
Anytime throughout this process, since I've been on this board, that I have had a question about anything, I have reached out to the city, and they have been phenomenal in getting back with me on a response.
Right, right.
Sometimes I didn't like it, but you know what? I don't question it either, because it is
That's what it is.
their interpretation of it. Again,
Okay, now, do we need a motion on this to,
I don't,
Well,
Have him-
we've had a couple, so we've had a couple possibilities here.
Okay.
One possibility was, you suggested that somebody could make a motion to submit Don's questions to the city council.
directly to the city
for this
council?
one. Another suggestion was that we could have Don's suggestions put in the minutes of our meeting. Right? So they're available to, and that seems like the third thing, if I'm getting this right, is that,
Which makes the most sense.
well, I don't know, is that every meeting that we have, we would come up with 3 or 4 questions that we would like clarification and interpretation. Is that what you're saying?
and I'm not necessarily saying that it would be every meeting.
Oh.
But I'm just saying in
When there
general,
is
right now.
questions, when there is questions. we
Right,
can-
let's
And give
start
them a
with it.
month to get back to
I
us.
just didn't know if we even had the right or whatever to
You can always
to
ask a question.
ask a question
Sure,
that
Oh,
is
yeah.
not on the agenda.
we can always ask a question.
I like the proposal. I would suggest a possible tweak. The list of questions here, it's around 15. That's really too much for the staff unless they're compelled to deal with, and that's going to interfere with time for other things. Another possibility that would go along with what Griffin was suggesting would be to provide the entire list, and then the city staff works on a few of them for the next meeting, maybe 5. And then the next meeting, another 5, and then just always have something for a while at least on the ZBA agenda for question and answer and discussion of this issue.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to work through and keep this discussion going. I agree. I wouldn't want the questions to be cumbersome for city staff and take away from them serving the community, but I do believe we should provide the list in full and give them the answer. They're the experts on a lot of this stuff, so they might roll through it and surprise us with some quick and easy answers, some links to the website. But yeah, no, I think this is a good starting place.
So can I ask, I guess for some clarity there, again, we're happy to do the best we can to try to answer some of these questions over the upcoming months. I think more logistically. So easy enough today. We had a variance application. We were going to get you all together to hear that variance application. We're able to have a robust discussion afterwards. Traditionally, recognizing all of you as, the volunteers that you are, when we don't have action items on the agenda, we're not scheduling meetings, we're not getting everyone together. I guess is the expectation that we are now going to meet every month,
No.
whether there's another
I
appeal?
don't believe
Or
so.
we add this to the agenda in the upcoming meetings for discussion when, like this evening, there is another
Right.
thing that's gonna already bring you all together?
That's a good
We will
question.
do what you all would like on that, but
I think that, rather than get together every month to answer a question or something, that's a little overkill. But, if there's nothing else on the agenda, if we do have something on the agenda, then we can include, get some answers to the questions that we have.
okay, thank you.
I personally would like to see Mr. Bemis's things be a part of the minutes of this meeting so that we could all read it at our leisure.
That's fine.
It's
I
easy-
don't think that
easy
needs a
to do.
motion. That's just fine as long as I
don't
I
even
can
know
get
if
a
we need
copy after the
motion, But I
meeting.
mean, it's been discussed, so you just put it in there.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
I have a written copy here, and I will follow it up with an email, which I would suggest, since it's going to be in the public record, there's no problem that I can see in sending it on to the ZBA members so they can see what my questions were. They may decide that I have some really dumb questions, and that's great, because at least then we can discuss them.
If I may, Mr. Commissioner,
Yes.
maybe as part of the path forward, as we submit the questions, they get added to the minutes, we review them as commissioners, and we pick one that is our top tier for the next meeting, regularly scheduled ZBA meeting where there's another application. And from my perspective, clearly defining the 21-day expectation
That would be my number one.
would be what I would suggest.
Yeah. So are we all in agreement?
I think so.
Larry, you're sitting here silent.
I don't think the definition of 21 days has any effect whatsoever on what we do here. I don't think it's an appropriate question for us to really be concerned about.
Well, that would be under one set of circumstances. If it comes out that all variance requests are sent straight to the ZBA without filtration or rewording, it could suddenly become important. There was, as I mentioned, a ZBA case where the ZBA said, you missed the 21 days. Sorry. So in that case, the 21 days is very important.
Well, from my perspective as a commissioner, I do appreciate staff's time to review applications because they're not always appropriate. Maybe a variance is not needed in a case, and staff can walk through what that situation entails. There could be the potential to misuse a system. So I think having the processes in place that we have at the city are important. Just think the community may need some more transparency and know, what their rights are.
Now, what this would not involve, though, would be saying the city staff cannot tell us what they think.
Right.
I mean, if the city staff concludes, for example, that a part or a variance request is not appropriate, it's also possible to send the request to the ZBA along with the recommendation from city staff saying this is not appropriate because. Then the ZBA will have taken the responsibility to make a decision, and the decision may well be the city staff was right.
We're getting off track, so I'm sorry I made my statement. Let's proceed.
Okay, so we're all in agreement that you're going to present and you're going to get us a copy of all of
Yes.
this? And then at our next meeting that we have something on the agenda, we will include
A question or two.
a couple of questions answered that we have.
Let
Is
us
that-
look at the list and we
Yeah.
will do the best we can to try to start getting you all answers.
Okay, the paper I have, it has some process suggestions on the end of it that I think we've basically mooted out of the whole issue right now. So you'll recognize that.
Okay.
All righty. Brings us to item number 8, commissioner comments. And we'll save your slideshow for another time. I promise I'll give you the 10 minutes. Let's start down here, Mr. Finn.
I have nothing additional.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for your time, as always, and to bring up that on the city website, southavenmi.gov, under Departments, Building Services, Zoning Administration, and Permits, and the last section of that page is an area for Zoning Board of Appeals, where our bylaws are linked. It talks about the intent of the ZBA. There is a ZBA application, should someone require that, and it goes into depth on a lot of what we've talked about. And if folks have comments or questions, related to a specific application that comes up for public hearing on a future ZBA agenda, those are the perfect types of communications that we look forward to. If folks have things that are a little bit more out in the ether and gray area, they are more likely better intended for the city council, your specific city council person. That's all.
I've said plenty.
Larry?
Just a reminder, as I have said many times, we have a specific role here. We just need to remember what our role is.
I think I've said enough, too.
No comments.
And I just want to thank the city staff for putting up with us, and the public, thank you for your comments. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. We are adjourned.